let's dive into this. Back in April of 2026, the world was, seriously on a razor's edge. You had this 50-day conflict between the US and Iran that had just completely spiraled out of control, pushing us right to the very brink of an all-out war. And then, just as suddenly as it all started, it stopped. Or did it? We're going to break down this incredible crisis that almost was.
So, it all really came to a head on April 7th, 2026. Picture this. There are just hours left on a deadline that President Donald Trump had given to Iran. And then he posts this absolutely chilling message on social media. The whole world just held its breath. What was this? Was he threatening a conventional war? Or was this something far, far worse? A lot of people were genuinely convinced a nuclear attack was just moments away.
And then you get the ultimate twist. Just 90 minutes, 90, before that deadline expired, a ceasefire was suddenly announced. You can imagine the whole world just let out a collective sigh of relief. But it left everyone with this massive question. How? How did we go from the absolute brink of total annihilation to a sudden truce? That is the huge mystery we're going to unpack right now.
Okay, so this crisis, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? No, this was the climax of a really devastating 50-day spiral. It all kicked off on February 28th. So let's take a look at the incredible and frankly tragic cost of this super rapid escalation.
And the human toll here, it was just staggering. We're talking more than 4,000 lives lost in just over 7 weeks. It's so easy to just see that number on a screen and move on, but think about what that really means. Behind that number are thousands of families completely destroyed, entire communities changed forever by a conflict that just exploded in less than 2 months. And this chart, it really paints a picture of where the fighting was most brutal. You can see the vast majority of casualties were in Iran and Lebanon. But then, in stark contrast, look at the much smaller numbers for Israeli and American soldiers. This is what we mean when we talk about an asymmetrical conflict. It's basically a war fought on totally unequal terms, where one side ends up bearing a hugely disproportionate human cost.
But maybe the most terrifying part of this whole escalation, it involved Iran's nuclear program. You had attacks hitting the Natanz facility, and then, and this is the really alarming part, 4 separate bombings happened near the Bushehr nuclear power plant. This was the absolute nightmare scenario that leaders in the region had feared. Just a year before, Qatar had warned that a direct hit on that plant could trigger a Chernobyl-level disaster. We're talking about making the entire Gulf uninhabitable for generations. The stakes were just unbelievably high.
Okay, so things are escalating, and then the conflict reaches this really critical turning point, an event that would directly challenge American claims of total air superiority and kick off one of the most frantic, high-stakes rescue missions you can imagine, deep behind enemy lines. So on April 3rd, it happens. An Iranian missile takes down a U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle. Now this was a huge blow. President Trump had been going on about total air dominance, but this one event proved that, hey, Iran's defenses were still very, very much a threat. And now you've got 2 crew members down on Iranian soil. The race against time had officially begun.
So how in the world did they pull this off? Well, it was a truly historic operation. First up, the CIA gets to work on a deception campaign. They start spreading false news that both crew members were already safe, hoping it would make the Iranians call off their search. Pretty clever, right? Then they managed to locate the second airman, who had very smartly hidden himself up at a 7,000-foot altitude. From there, it was go time. Elite Delta Force and Navy SEAL teams snuck into Iran, all while U.S. airstrikes hammered the area to keep Iranian forces pinned down. And in the middle of all that chaos, they got him out.
2 days later, Trump makes this very simple, very triumphant post, "We got him." And while the rescue was, without a doubt, a huge success, it came at a seriously high cost. An A-10 warplane actually crashed during the op, 2 Black Hawk helicopters were hit, and a bunch of other aircraft were damaged. So here's the crucial takeaway. Yes, it was a victory, for sure, but it also just hammered home the very real, very serious dangers U.S. forces were up against.
All right, so after that dramatic rescue, the whole story shifts. We move away from military action and dive right into some frantic, really knife-edge diplomacy. A ceasefire gets brokered, but as you're about to see, it was anything but stable.
And this is where things get really interesting. Surprisingly, it was actually Pakistan that stepped in to try and pull everyone back from the brink.
they used to direct channel, between Pakistan's army chief and President Trump, and somehow they managed to broker this last-minute 2-week ceasefire. This was literally just before Trump's final deadline was set to expire.
But that peace, it was shattered almost immediately. I mean, within hours of the ceasefire taking effect, Israel launched these massive strikes on Lebanon, basically saying, hey, Lebanon wasn't part of our deal. Even with that going on, peace talks did start in Islamabad, but they completely collapsed after just 21 hours. And what happens right after? Trump escalates again, announcing a full U.S. naval blockade of all Iranian ports. It was a total diplomatic roller coaster that just flew right off the rails.
So why did the talks fail so spectacularly? Well, it all boiled down to one single core disagreement. The U.S. demand was pretty straightforward: suspend all nuclear activity for 20 years. Iran's offer? They were only willing to commit to 5 years. That gap, from 5 to 20 years, it was massive, it was completely unbridgeable, and it sent the whole thing crashing down. So, with diplomacy now in total shambles, the crisis just got even more confusing, and it started sending these ripples of uncertainty all across the globe. Let's take a look at some of that fallout. And this right here, this table just perfectly illustrates the chaos. On April 17th, even with that US blockade in place, Iran suddenly announces the Strait of Hormuz is open. Great, right? Oil prices dropped. But then, just one day later, they do a complete 180, a total U-turn. They close the strait again and even start firing on cargo ships. I mean, can you imagine the massive uncertainty this created for global trade? It was pure chaos.
And these weren't just empty threats, not at all. Let's take India as a perfect example. Iranian forces actually fired on 2 Indian-flagged ships. This forced a total of 8 of their vessels to just turn around and go back. On top of that, the conflict forced India, which is a huge trading partner with both Russia and Iran, to have to go and seek a special waiver from the US just to buy Russian oil. It's a textbook example of how quickly a regional conflict can throw global energy security into a total tailspin.
Now, meanwhile, kind of on a separate track, the US did manage to mediate a temporary 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, and that did bring a brief bit of calm to that particular front. But, and this is super important to remember, this was completely separate from the core US-Iran standoff. That main conflict, it was still totally unresolved. And all of that, it brings us right to the present moment in this timeline. That original 2-week ceasefire between the US and Iran, the one that started back on April 8th, well, it's set to expire today, April 22nd. So let's recap. The peace talks have failed, the blockade is in full effect, and the clock has officially run out.
And that's where we are. Absolutely nothing has been solved. The ceasefire is over. Those core disagreements that blew up the peace talks, they're still there. And that naval blockade, let's be clear, is pretty much an act of war in itself. So with the clock now at 0, the entire world is once again asking the exact same terrifying question it was asking back on April 7th. What happens next?